So I'll start with the funding landscape. Don't worry if you look at the funding landscape as if all is gloom. There's always a silver lining. So current landscape, the resources and all the available opportunities are highly competitive. We've got so many ideas, so many people trying to pitch different ideas to funders, but the pot of money or pot of resources is just very small. So we're all scrambling for that small pot of money. So the competition is fierce in terms of grant capture. It's also an issue with us in the development studies sector. There is reduced funding and tight budgets. I think you have seen what has happened in the sector with all the cutting of budgets, you know, USAID and all those other issues that have happened in the development sector, especially even overseas development assistance. Budgets have reduced around that. Means less resources for research in development studies. Shifting priorities, we also have other competing issues again, which are coming on board. And it seems funders are allocating more resources towards those funding priorities. There is always that precarity gap as well. When you finish your PhD or during your PhD, you have not developed a profile in terms of, you know, be it publications, be it maybe previous grants. So you are in a situation where you want to prove to the funder that at least you have a good idea, but there is that element of, do you have that track record that if we give you the resources, you can manage? Do you have something that you have demonstrated in your area, be it in terms of publications? So most of us, we are in that, you know, precarity, but at the same time, we want to get our first grant. So crossing that gap or filling that gap is always a challenge. But like I said, all is not gloom. There is always a silver lining on how, as early career researchers, can strategically position for funding opportunities. So what can we do today? We want to know the landscape, stay informed of funders' calls, trends, and priorities. We also want to build strategic relationships. Use these platforms to build strategic collaborations and relationships. Network as much as you can. Try to have time to co-create with purpose. Strengthen your funding edge. Develop grant writing and impact storytelling skills. So this is one of the skills that we want to at least try and impart today. Align and differentiate, align your ideas with funder priorities and show what makes your work unique to the funder. Start small, but also think big. So leverage on the small grants that you find, the fellowships and all that as stepping stones towards bigger grants. So with that, we hope that you can be positioned, well prepared, and also it needs persistence as well. Grant writing needs persistence and turning all these challenges into opportunities. Okay, so what are some of the funding opportunities that are available for people in our career stages? I know you always want to go to conferences like these ones, so leverage on some of those travel and small grants. Most of our research professional, this is a funding database. So if you go to your research offices, especially those who are based in the UK, or even here in Ireland and other places here in Europe, most of them are signed to that database. I know even some of the countries in Africa as well and universities, they are also signed. Some of them are beginning to sign up to research professional. So this is a database which gives you all the available funding calls. And on that database, you can actually set up parameters that you can receive weekly alerts about grants that are sort of tailor-made to your research interests. So like mine, I've set it that every Friday, I get all the funding calls for the faculties which I support. So I support the Faculty of Health Studies. I also support the Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Engineering. So all the calls that are live and available, every week I get the alerts. And then I've also set the researchers or academics in those faculties to receive those calls. So they receive calls ahead of time and they can start preparing. So I'm sure you can also do that setup for yourselves to have all the calls tailor-made to your research interests. Early career researcher fellowships. These are personal postdoctoral grants. So for those who have just completed their PhDs, you can access these personal postdoctoral grants. They usually cover your salaries and also your research expenses. And some, they may also include equipment depending on the call or student costs if you're going to have research assistants on your grant. Usually they are 1 to 5 years. And the main criteria for evaluating these early career research fellowships is your future potential. So you need to demonstrate your potential, right? So the difference with the actual research grant is this is now a substantial funding, typically for permanent academic positions. And the main rubric there is, whether it is deliverable and it's something which should be tangible. So we are no longer looking at your potential. We are looking at whether the project that you have pitched is deliverable and it's something practical. And you also need to have excellent experience that can write you up as named postdoc. So one of the things as a postdoc, you may not access these research grants, but your PI, your mentor, or senior academics, they can put you down as a named postdoc for their research applications. And that also leverage you for future funding. There are good recommended resources, which I found very useful. There are podcasts from Cambridge University. If you just click on Early Career Researcher Fellowships podcasts, they can give you a lot in terms of your tube sessions on various fellowships that are available. It's not only Cambridge, so many universities. It's only that I saw the Cambridge one is more of a compendium of these podcasts in a well-structured way. So you can always access that. Alternative funding as well, there is postgraduatefunding.com. So you can also check on that to look for funding opportunities. In the UK, we have what we call UKRI, UK Research and Innovation. It has got various research councils, but the ones that are more appealing to us is the Arts, Humanities and Research Council. It has got also the fellowships, and usually the ECR route has got 50K to 250K funding. And then we also have the ESRC new investigator grants as well. Again, it's within that band in terms of funding. Then the British Academy, there is also the early career researchers in humanities and social sciences. So again, I urge you, for those who have just completed their PhDs, go and register to become an ECR network member for the British Academy. There are loads of resources and some of the funding which is just ring-fenced for members. So I think it's worth having that as well. We also have charities and trusts, level home, early career researcher fellowships. This usually provides 50% of funding for research, costs and salary support. So with all these opportunities, it's ideal that you get a buy-in from your mentors and the institution, because there is a requirement for matched funding, which is a budget which has to be set by faculties or the institution. So getting that buy-in is important when you do the application, because 50% of the costs will be borne by the hosting university. We also have Welcome Trusts, early career awards with a specific focus on health and well-being research. We also have European and international funding. So all those funding opportunities are there. Sheila has done a very brilliant job. She has put some of those opportunities. I'm sure Sheila and Jen have shared those on your emails. So that sheet with all the opportunities. So I'm sure at the end of the session, you can have all those things available. So don't worry about writing lots of notes on this one. So basically, that's our funding landscape and some of the opportunities. Like I said, those databases are very useful for those with research offices at their institutions. Go to your research office, and they've got loads of resources that they can, support you with, especially with your applications. So make use of them while we are still a PhD student. Some of us, we realized that towards the end, and we didn't have much time to get institutional resources. We were already checking out. So while you are still a PhD or PGR in your third year, second year or so, start, visiting your research offices, have a talk with them about what opportunities can be suitable for you or within their institution. And, some of them, they also have internal funding grants as well. So that's a good source as well. I will pause for now and hand this over to João to take us through the strategy and argument and how you can frame your grants. Is that okay, João?
Perfectly fine. You can hear me well? Can you hear me well?
All good, all good.
All good, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So that's, if I ask you a question, please react, y'all. I want to see some yelling there or some thumbs up on the live chat. So, as I was briefly introduced before, I come here in order to give you a hands-on experience based on working for so many years on this sort of landscape. And let me start by emphasizing something that Jekoniya already said. This writing a grant is different than writing an essay. The goals are different, the purposes are different, and what we're looking for when we are receiving applications for a grant process is to understand this return on investment concept. Because regardless of what we do, this is money that is being invested. These are resources that are being invested in a proposal that has shown the potential to have an impact. And that also forces a sort of change in the mindset of what is being done. Next slide, please. Because when you're talking about an article, doing an academic essay per se, you do what? What do you do? You are talking to your peers, and you're focusing on an academic angle of search, and you're generally speaking, depends on the essay or not, but you're looking into the past or the current present in order to find reasons. Just as a quiet note, is everything okay there, colleagues?
They're asking if you can show your picture. Is it possible to show your picture as you present?
I have my camera on. I can see myself.
That's okay. I think we can move on. Yeah, so it's okay. We can manage with that.
Okay, great. And last but not least, in terms of, because you see here division in 4, is in terms of how do you measure success? In an essay, generally speaking, you look into how depth your analysis is. But this does not work when thinking about grants. This does not work when thinking about proposals that you're submitting, because you are looking into the future. You're looking into proposing something that you're going to do. You are wanting to show them that indeed there's going to be a return on the investment. There's going to be an impact they're going to be able to showcase because there's an actionable impact. And least but as important is who you're pitching that is to, generally speaking, people that have gone through multiple different applications, and therefore they can be slightly overwhelmed, slightly exhausted, and you want to break that mental barrier that exists there because you want to show them how different, how innovative your project is, your proposal is, and therefore it is a safe bet. Next slide, please. So now I'm going through, starting with the basics. And I'm hoping that, when we sent you the agenda, we did place there a call so that we can base, because the exercise will be based on an actual call. And in every single proposal cycle that you apply to, there is always something called eligibility. And I can tell you from years of experience that people tend to invest time and they are not even eligible to start with. The eligibility there and also the review criteria that is available on the calls, they're not there just to occupy sections. They are not placed there for the sake because the grant managers wanted to make it longer. They were there for a purpose. They are there because that is the first key element that is checked even before it is considered if your application is good or bad. If you're not eligible, but your proposal is brilliant, you will not even move to the stage of review. Because application, you will not check that initial validity a moment. That example that we gave you, you're not going to be surprised because I assume that all of you actually read it, has an age limit. And it has an age limit not just for the principal investigator, but also for every single member of the team. And that is clearly identified there. And it's also clearly enumerated there that when the CV is uploaded, you must indicate there your date of birth. I can tell you that out of the 100 applications, I'm putting in general terms, but out of 100 applications that I receive, at least 30%, if not more, immediately are rejected because people do not even comply with that initial eligibility setup. Even though when we go through the application cycle, people need to indicate if they are eligible with every single element that they need to make a check mark, and yet they still submit it. This is not, I'm focusing on this because this is key, because otherwise you will dedicate a lot of time to submit a proposal and it's not even gonna reach the stage of being evaluated, which is a waste of time on your end and is a waste of time on the people that are reviewing it. And I can fortunately say that on my end, there is not a sort of database to indicate when people are rejected and why they were rejected. But I know that there are some cases in some competitions around the globe that if people are continuously rejected even at the eligibility stage, they're almost like blacklisted. And people already immediately look into it and see if, and you're basically cut off from the get-go. And you don't want to be put yourself in that position. Next slide, please. And this is one case of the 45 years, but imagine another case. And this one was not on this. You might have checked because the competition that I run has that research angle category where the ORD comes from, where they have that 45 years old as the limitation. But on the other track that we have, we say that we do not fund projects that are new. So it has to be a project already on the ground. And the same thing happens. And again, we are again wasting time. Everyone is wasting their times because even though they have a wonderful idea, they did not comply with the why, with the goal of what the funders or the entity that is organizing said opportunity had in mind when they set it out there. So it is not a waste of time for anyone if you spend time to actually read a call from beginning to end. That is actually an expectation, and that is an obligation for people that are applying. It might seem tough, it might seem strict, it might seem like I'm being tough, but that is the point of it. Because if you don't do it from the get-go, if you don't align with the rules of the game, then what game are you playing? If you don't understand the rules of the game, how can you succeed in said game? If you go to the World Cup and you start making comments about the game, but in your mind you're thinking about the rules of American football, how can I take you seriously? How can you succeed? How can you actually achieve and convince others that you know what you're doing from the get-go? How can the funder trust that you will ultimately implement the project, duly take account of the funds that are assigned to you, if even the starting the ground rules were not correctly perceived from your end? Okay, so just setting the ground. Next slide, please. The rules are important. They're vital. Yes, they are absolutely vital. But they need then to understand, everyone needs to understand, that you are in full command of what you're going to do. You know, it's macro to micro. It sounds like fancy words, but they matter. They matter in the sense of everyone knows that poverty is bad or that climate change is accelerating. This is something, right? But this is the context. This is not the problem. This is not what you're going to do. What you want to do is to start to give the context. You need to give them the background information, like on an academic article. You start with the literature review. But then you need to go exactly into showing why your project is important and how is it going to contribute to the overall scheme of things. What is the exactly missing angle? What are you going to focus on while on this? Think of your academic development this way, your pathway. It's like thinking, start with looking in macro, replace it by bachelor's, and at the bottom you have your PhD. I mean, you start with your bachelor's and you're looking at this. You're going to do your master's, you're going at this. And then you go to the PhD and you're looking at the little dot right in the middle. It's about the same thing. They don't want to be funding a proposal that promises to deliver everything because they know that that is not feasible. What they want to know is what is the overall structure of the problem that you're trying to address? Why is it relevant to your work? How does your work and your background fit into that? And then what is the exact problem that you are the best person suited to solve in order to advance? Because again, going back into that fancy word, return on investment. How can they make sure that there is a proper return on investment on what they are betting on you? Because ultimately that's what people are doing. They are betting on your stardom. I like to say that throughout my work, I'm meant to be the cheerleader because you are already a star. It is just a matter of you being able to demonstrate to those that are going to give the funds that you are a star. And you need to convince them of that. Not by showing off all of fancy words, but showing off that you are in command. That you are doing it because you're the right person to do it. Because you understand how big the problem is and you're able to trim it down into small bits, and therefore you're going to contribute to that small bit that is going to advance into solving the bigger issue. Next slide, please. And these are all big concepts, but all these big concepts are aligned into something that I know that we are going to address during the group exercise of the theory of change. Because generally speaking, about a proposal, you think about activities, you think about outputs. But then, what are the outputs actually going to represent? And that is something that we're going to address afterwards, which is the difference between outputs and outcomes. Because an output is not the same. An output is something that you can measure, and it's something that you can immediately point out that you're going to provide by the end of the project. But an outcome actually is what is going to emerge, is the consequence. It is the one that is going to lead into showcasing the impact of all the work that you've done so far. And what tends to happen and tends to be a shortcoming on proposals is to demonstrate how one connects to the other. So basically thinking about the headers that you're seeing there. Oh, by the way, you're going to get this presentation afterwards, so don't worry about taking too many notes, and then you can put it back so that you can see. We start with the if something, then something which leads to and resulting on something. These are the magic words that you need to always have in your mind. And this is the exercise that we're going to do later on. Because what tends to happen is that people fail to demonstrate the connection between the then and the leads and lose power because then people think that you are not capable. Reviewers tend to think that you are not capable to even understand the why of what you're doing. You need to be able to have that in always throughout the notice for you to be able to demonstrate how the dots are connected, how those things form a logical pathway, and how everything that you're going to do will be afterwards used. Because if you do a project for the sake of doing a project because it's a nice one, what is the point? Why is there the need for a said project to be funded? Why is there a niche that you are saying that you had there, but you didn't actually demonstrate it with a live case example? I mean, next slide. Because everything that you're doing needs to turn into change on the system. You do research, you do a proposal because you've identified a problem that needs to be solved. And generally speaking, you researchers don't actually have the power to make changes for said problem. That problem is held on the power of someone else. And that someone else tends to be the government. Regardless of which level we're talking about, they are the ones that need to do. And you cannot expect, honestly, you cannot expect them to be reading your papers. That does not happen. In an ideal world, in an utopia that would work, in the real life that we live in, that does not happen. You can make the most impactful, you can have as many peer reviews as possible, you can have it quoted by the entire world. If it has not reached them, if they don't understand it, forget about it. Forget about it. And that is why it is so important that even within the proposal itself, when you demonstrate impact, you demonstrate as well how you're going to be able and to whom you're going to translate and ensure that the conclusions that you found, the evidence that you created, will be used. They don't speak the same language. You cannot expect them to speak the same language. That is never going to happen. And therefore, we are the ones that will retain the knowledge. You are the ones who retain the knowledge. And you need to be able to map out how you're going to trim down said knowledge into those that will actually have be able to understand it and use it to advance the goals of addressing the issue that you've identified. So there are multiple checkpoints that can be done, but here this graphic just to it very rudely, it's very rudely, but it's just to give the pathway that generally is followed in order for this. You need to have the initial checkpoint, which is who am I going to address? Because the government is big, but they have different ministries, or they have different secretaries, or they have different offices, and you need to identify which one of them are you actually going to target? To which one of them is this information most valuable? And which one of them actually will be able to take it forward to, in fact, lead to a policy change? But it's also important to have partners that have faced said values. You cannot undervalue the importance of storytelling, of a human story, of an ambassador, of someone that can speak on behalf of you, and then you can back their experience, their testimony with data, with evidence. So when I'm talking about NGO partners, I'm talking because those are the ones that generally direct and have, in one way or another, the connection to the people that are either being impacted, they are being targeted by the problem that you've identified, and you need to have them on board in order for said impact to be visible. And the last checkpoint, very rudely, is the timing. How is this? You cannot just choose what is convenient to you. You need to choose how it is going to fit the activities of those that have the decision-making power. So you need to understand when is the timing, when is it that they're going to be more available to hear you, and when is it going to be more timely for them to receive a document that they can use afterwards to push on the narrative that you're trying to set forth. These are only 3 checkpoints just to shift your mindset and to make you understand how these things go. But to be more precise, and going to the next slide, please. You know your way. You know your data. They don't. So you need to pick up, and basically this is just to trim down into the line that we saw on the previous slide. The pathway, how one turns into the other. You need to be able to understand that they will not care about the methodology, and we're talking about the policy actors. They will not care about how you did it. What they will care about how it was, how in the sense is how the data and the conclusions that you found are going to be useful for them. This is about you going to them to showcase how your work is going to help them to achieve the goals that they have in their minds that are going to benefit their constituents, their region, their country. So you need to be able to start to be able to, and that's why it's important to have always calm people around you and people that are not from the same field as you, because after you do your policy brief, you translate, or you think that you've translated that scientific knowledge into more common language, and if your colleague that is not from the area does not understand it, you need to go back. You need to redo it, because that person that is not from your field of knowledge, or that NGO that I'm talking for you to partner up. And when I'm saying NGO, I'm also a CSO, can be a CSO as well, can be an organization not well established, but that works on this. If they don't understand it, none of them understand it, then you're not doing it correctly. You need to be able to put all those little checkpoints before to matter into the end product of your work in terms of the policy pathway, in terms of the policy brief that emerges, so that it is understandable. Otherwise, if they get something they don't understand, they're going to thank you, but they're going to put it on their shelves and it's never going to be used. I've seen, unfortunately, happen multiple times in the past. Next slide, please. And why is this important again? Remember what I said? Outputs, outcomes. Think of it as the what that leads into the why in some sense. The outputs you immediately control from the get-go in your infrastructure, in what you're doing. Because you are talking about how many reports you're going to publish, how many people you're going to train. But those are numbers per se that live by themselves. They do not show how that is going to translate into actionable initiatives or impact on the ground. You need to then to say that you have these outputs and you expect to have these outcomes. They start the same out, but one puts and the other one comes. So what actually does change? You need to quantify it. And keeping in mind here one thing, it is key for you to, when doing this infrastructure, this framework that is generally called this monitoring, evaluation, and learning, the MEL, to simultaneously not be under ambitious and over ambitious. You need to be able to justify why you're saying that you're doing 3 instead of 10, and why you're promoting an outcome of 20% instead of 50. The reviewers, always take into account the capacity of the team to actually produce this, in the sense of team structure, time available, but also look into the methodology to see if it is viable to achieve these outcomes. Sometimes it is best that you are accurate but small, than ambitious and big, and you are penalized by it. People think that if they put 100 instead of 50, that is going to give them an edge. Well, that's completely untrue. It can be as efficient to put 50 or 100, depending on the type of project that you're submitting, and depending on the type of budget that you're going to have. And I know Jekoniya is going to talk about that later. But above all, you need to be able to stand by them and be able to be prepared to have a backup plan. When you're going to put out the methodology and you're going to explain your goals, the outputs and outcomes, you need to be upfront and say that you place these because of X. Because if at the end you are awarded and instead of the 50 you reach only 10, you're going to be questioned about it. And generally speaking, there are some grant schemes that if you don't achieve the goals due to your own fault, you can be penalized for it in future opportunities or even on the same one. But it can be as bad to put 50 and show 100, because reviewers can then afterwards, or the grant manager at the time, that asks, did they not plan properly, or are they over reporting, and then red flags all over the place. You need to be as accurate and be able to stand by them, regardless if they're small or big, because they can go either way, regardless of the direction that you decide. It is a matter of you standing by it. Don't throw random numbers. It is quite clear, both from the reviewer's angle and from the grant manager angle, if you are awarded, that those numbers do not make sense. And more and more, what is being seen in the developing sector and on the grant sector is that the funders put into their mechanisms, into their grant agreements or contracts, a way to cancel your grant at any time if it is uncovered that you are not truthful throughout the entire process, even after the grant is awarded. So be able to stand by what you're promising, and if you somehow you overachieve or underachieve, you're able to demonstrate to what you've learned of that reason of getting to that scenario, either going up or down. It's only a failure and is only perceived as a mistake and a red flag if you're not able to justify them. And last but not least, next slide please, because we live in a very interesting era right now, is AI. And you can say that on this presentation, AI was used. Absolutely. Because AI is a tool. But it is particularly important and particularly relevant when used for grant proposals. Classic mistake, and I've seen this, leaving your prompts on proposals. It can seem, believe me, I've seen that. I've seen proposals being rejected because of that. People don't even have the time to remove that. And the proposals that come from AI, though AI keeps on evolving, they all sound the same. They're robotic, they're shallow, the wording is very sophisticated, without passion. Humans have a very particular way of writing, and AI exists to help you, not to do the work for you per se. You need to, proposals that I ended up rejecting under this topic directly are those that repeated the theme every time a new paragraph started. That is a classic giveaway of an fully AI generated tool. A person writing is not going to be writing all the time, repeating the same theme all over the place when they know, and you probably saw that, there is a word limit. If you're applying, it's because your project fits within the theme. So you need to repeating the theme all over again, because one is a waste of space, is a waste of words that you should be using to promote your proposal, and therefore you cannot use it. So use it for brainstorming. Don't use it for copy pasting. Even the structure, when copy pasting, it is so obvious that it was done by AI without changing, almost in some cases, a simple comma. Do not do it. And this is particularly obvious even when they are spelling out the methodology. And connecting to what I said before, you just don't put out there just what you're going to do. You need to do why you're going to do it, and how is it contributing for the end result, for your the goals that you're trying to achieve with this exercise. And I believe that from my end, this should be the last one. And before we go in, because I did end on purpose a little bit early, because I want to hear from you. Any questions that can emerge, considering my experience as someone that is on the side of the other US angle. Jekoniya, I think you can see if someone there has a question, or if someone here online has a question, please feel free to raise your hand.
Thank you, João. I think it's important that participants make use of João now, because I think at some point you will leave after this, after his part on this presentation. So if you've got any particular question for him, I think that's the time. The advantage to ask João is because he sits on the other side. I sit on the side of the pre-award side, preparing your grants, but he sits on the reviewer side, on the funder side. So I think his wealth of experience reviewing proposals. If you have got any question, I think that will be handy and helpful. Yes.
I wonder why the age is important filter. I mean, 45 years old seems to be like very short age. So I just wondered.
Okay, so you're
So
talking
the
about
question,
specifically about this call. It is because we put the 45 because this is a call that is meant to be for young researchers. So researchers that are not well established yet, and in most of the cases actually, this is their first experience actually managing a proposal from the beginning till the end. And that's why the 45 years old is has been the established limit. And
there is
keep in mind, like Jekoniya said, I'll be leaving, yes, but that document that was shared by Jenny, was it Jenny? Yes, I believe it was Jenny. Uh, please put there any questions you might have afterwards, and I'll be more than happy afterwards to provide you as detailed answers as possible. So if you put it there, you'll get an answer from me, regardless.
so there is
Thank you.
I guess someone is talking, but I cannot hear anything.
Yeah, we can't hear anything. Try to give them the microphone more directly.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
now we can.
Hear me? Is it better?
Yes, now it's better.
Okay, you talked.
We lost you again.
Yeah, we did lose you again.
It's quite important when you talked about the male trap. We have to justify the contribution, make sure that we have measurable outcomes. And that also brought me to reflect on qualitative proposals, because most of the time in this era of qualitative research and with our experiences getting in touch with people, you find out that some information you are looking at, or maybe research narrative you're focusing on, is more qualitative, is deeply qualitative. And most of the time, the references you have are not even available in any source. I don't know if you can throw a bit more light around the qualitative research proposals and why it's mostly rejected compared to the quants.
Because it depends. From my experience, what I've seen is it goes back to the principle of eligibility and what the call is expected. What is the exact? I tend to, this program in specific, it can be both ways. One does not have favor on the other one. It depends on the justification. Why are you using that methodology? And why are you using those indicators in respect to the others? Because what they tend to fail when they believe that everyone understands the proposal from the get-go rather than explaining why those choices were made. And it's that same trap that I was talking about on after the research is done, to translating the evidence into the correct audience. It's the same principle. It's about assuming that people will understand it from the get-go and not explaining the rationale of use. How does that approach that you're selecting is more impactful and more appropriate for the proposal rather than the other way around? It goes. I know that it might seem like I'm not answering, but it's between the lines. It's about providing the answers, justifying the reasoning, and showcasing why this is being done this way rather than the other way around. And an advice that I can give it to you is exactly this. Telling from the get-go, spend all the time to explain which indicators you've used, but say why you're focusing on the qualitative rather than the quantitative. So that is a question that the reviewers do not address to you afterwards, because you already addressed it. Put your minds in the mindset of the reviewers, and remember I said look into the eligibility, but look into the review rubric. The review rubric is there for a reason, and you need to use it for your advantage, not to be just a placeholder. Because they will, regardless of what happens, they will put your proposal next to the review rubric, and if there's a disconnect, if it is brilliant, but it does not enter the different elements that were there, you're done for. I hope I somehow answered your question.
Okay. There is another question. Okay, there is an online question, João. Do you want to read it out or? Yeah.
So just wanted to ask, when we are proposing research that involves vulnerable or marginalized communities, what specific ethical safeguards do reviewers look for in the narrative? They will look into their own experience into it. Because in this case, the program that I'm managing, it's a global landscape. So it is not about a specific country. So if you were talking about a proposal, and I've had that in the past, where it was India, so our headquarters is in India, so that's the case that I probably know the best in terms of the applications. If they're looking into India, then they know exactly what are the ethical safeguards in the sense of what are the legislation, what are the instructions and the sort of approvals they need to get to conduct the project, precisely to ensure that those vulnerable and marginalized communities are protected from influence and harm from the project that you're doing. When there is not, and if you can check this ORD, what they look for is the guidelines of the funder. In our case, the specific ethical safeguards that the reviewers will look into are the World Bank safeguards framework. So those are the ones that we look into. Those are the ones that we need to apply, because we need to follow those that come from the ultimate donor, which is the World Bank. So you need to take, when thinking, look into the call, but then look into who is providing the funds for said call, for said proposal, for said project that you are going to. When in doubt, and you don't know, you just be smart and recognize that you understand that there are specific considerations to be taken due to the profile of your target group, and that you will take into consideration guidelines and instructions and safeguards that will be placed by you by the local or national authorities that you will seek prior to conducting the research. Be acknowledgeable of that. Acknowledge that from the get-go, so that it is not perceived by the reviewers that you'd even take that into account.
Thank you, João. Just to add, so there is something called peer review, and also making use of your research offices again. So with peer review, you are giving your peers or even senior people to review your work internally, and they can flag some of these disconnections. And then your research office, I know most of the academics, they want to go to the research office when they want to do costings and all that. But the research office do more than that. So they act as more of a devil's advocate. We read through guidelines a lot. That's our work, daily work, to read through for every call. Most of the calls are voluminous. Maybe it could be 40 pages, 40 pages of a guidance. And as an academic, you don't have time to go through most of those documents, accompanying documents of a call. So your research office is always on top of that game. They read every single document which accompanies the call. And if you work with them through your proposal development, they'll be able to flag some of those things to say, you know, on this section, this is what the guidance is saying. If you read the, you know, the assessment review or the assessment rubric, and they can help you to fine-tune your proposal. So if you work with them well in time, they will be able to add value to your proposal, because those are your internal experts. And those are the people who always interface with the funder. So in most of the funding councils in the UK, they normally run what they call master classes. So look at, for example, NIHR, UKRI, all the major Wellcome Trust. So before any major call, they are holding what they call webinars. Webinars, these are opportunities where they explain, they unpack the call for your understanding. So attend those webinars as well, so that you get all the nitty-gritties in terms of what is being expected. And I always say, you know, João has made reference to World Bank, but when you see the call, it's GDN, right? But now, don't look at the call, just the specific call, but look also the bigger picture in terms of the funding agents. What are they for? If it is National Institute of Health Research, they are looking at health research. Look at their strategic plans, go through their strategic plan. What are their priorities? Right? That gives you an idea in terms of what to focus on in terms of your proposal. So I just thought I could just add that little.
You did well, and let me then follow up before I leave precisely, because you know, I opened the call. You know, the call that we put there. I opened the call. Generally speaking, the first page does provide you with all the background that you need to take into account. If you look at the call, you see that immediately what is the focus? The theme. And theme is also another element that people tend to fail miserably, because many people believe that just by putting the fancy title throughout the application, that means that they are aligning with the theme. No, that is not the case. You cannot expect to recycle the same proposal over and over and over and over again, expecting a different result. Because if it keeps doing, and it's not solely because of the theme, it means that there is something wrong with it. So, you know, going over and repeating the same thing all over again, expecting different results, is, generally speaking, even madness, right? So, and a waste of your time. But you see the theme there. So the theme is there for a reason. But there's also there, like Jekoniya was saying, yes, it comes from GDN, but even the award directly states that it's funded under the World Bank. So that by itself also gives you that clear sign of what you should be looking at and how you should be looking at, right? Because then afterwards it is done. And following up on the senior and the support group that Jekoniya was saying that exists or should exist in different institutions that you could go to. Look, I'm a supporter of AI, and basically what I was telling you was to be cautious. Use it as a tool, not as a replacement of your brain. So, but as a tool, it is also very useful. And this is a tip that I've been giving over the last 2 years when the AI became more stabilized, is that you should develop your proposal, and then you should use AI to actually pretend that they, depends on where you stand, acts as an official and independent reviewer. You tell the AI, please act as the reviewer for this call, attach the call. I've done this proposal, attach the proposal. Can you please tell me how I am succeeding or not according to the review criteria? This gives you a very blunt but direct feedback on it based on what the AI reads. And the AI is not going to, for sure, he's going to be sugarcoating it and he's going to say it's amazing and it's going to do this. You've done an amazing work. That's all fluff. That's all beautiful. That's all fluff. What matters for you to capture from it is the angles where he's saying that you're not hitting the mark on the different review criteria. Because ultimately, the human reviewer will do the same exercise but with a human lens. But the formula will be the same. Review criteria versus application. Does it match? Does it not match? Out of 5, it gets a 3. And you want to go there aiming to get the 5 out of 5. I started by saying don't disqualify yourself by checking the eligibility criteria. But I also must tell you, don't apply aiming for anything else beyond the top price. You always should apply to anything with the goal and the objective of winning. Not getting the second, not getting the third. If you enter with that mentality, your proposal will show that. I can guarantee you. The reviewers will be able to understand that you didn't go that extra mile or that because you're playing it safe. And that will backfire. For sure. If the budget is for $30,000, you will submit a project that is feasible, that is rational for $30,000. You will not be submitting a project for $10,000 thinking that that is going to be an advantage for you. It is not. It is actually going to go against you badly. Okay? Again, I'm not going to be able to stay, but please do put all the questions you might have afterwards on that document that was shared by Lillian. And Lillian, I believe that people don't have the access to edit themselves. I think they need to ask you, so I would change the link for anyone to have the link to be able to edit. And afterwards, I will be more than happy to provide you as many input as needed.
It's now updated, so I think they can edit.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you, João, for this detailed strategy in terms of grant writing. Let's just clap hands for him. I think he has done a good job in terms of giving us how it looks like on the other side of a funder and a reviewer as well. So thank you so much, João, for this. We will try and after the break and finish the other session. And we'll always link up to synchronize in terms of, all the frequently asked questions within this session.
Absolutely. And afterwards, if needed be as well, Jekoniya, we didn't talk about it, but I can even, because everyone will be doing the exercise online, I'll be happy to afterwards provide some comments there as well to the different groups.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I think you have got the link to the Google Doc.
Yes.
In terms of the slides.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. And see you later.
Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. I think we now need to take a break.
You can put a slide for the break.
Okay. So we have got 10 minutes break. Let's grab a cup of coffee or have some juice, or just to stretch yourself so that at least you have sat for too long. I hope for us to come back at if we come back at 16:33, around 16:33, we come back again. Then is that okay? Yeah. So let's have our coffee down there and.
Can I suggest that you put a small, simple counter there? That was my plan.
Or count down the time.
Yeah.
Are you able to do that?
What type of counter do you need?
10 minutes.
About 10 minutes?
I might be able to find something like that. Let me see.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan.
1 second.
Just to make it sound more dynamic as well.
Oh, yeah. I know.
I put you one on the chat, Jan, as well, in case if you didn't find. And then you just can put there 10 minutes and display it on the screen.
Is there one showing currently? I was trying. There's a Zoom app that should show one.
Um, can you see that, João?
I see the presentation.
I'm trying to check on the chat box. I can't see any. Okay. So it's just clicking this one and it should show. Jan?
Hello, hello.
So are we just clicking this and it should show, or what is it?
I think it should show, but
I think you need to stop the current presentation, Jekoniya.
This will stop other screen sharing. Okay. I was trying to see if we can do it without that, but
If you stop sharing.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry. That just shared mine. Wait 1 second.
Okay.
I'll just do a window with the site that you said, Joe. Do. Alright, I'll do that.
Awesomeness.
Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Of course. Though I think I have slightly less than 10 minutes now, but I should be fine.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yes.
Jekoniya, so sorry then, but I think you are in control, right?
Yeah, I think we can manage. Thank you so much for the time as well.
No problem, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right. We will touch base later just to see the evaluation of this.
Exactly.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi. Sorry, Young. Is there a way that I can pause with this microphone?
Oh, yes, there is. If you take it out,
or I can.
Yeah, just do that. That's the easiest. That's the easiest thing to do. Just mute yourself.
So, but then there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 2 groups.
Yeah, so 2 groups of 4, I think that's fine.
Can you let them know that me and
So because Jen and are in the room.
Yep.
Yeah, so if those ones may not be included in the breakout.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's in the room?
Jane Argent and Lillian Treasure.
Okay, great.
Okay. Right.
Let me just...
So are you able to share from your side the slide on the presentation, or we can do it from our side?
Oh, you should do it from your side because you have it there.
Okay.
And presentation mode. Yep.
Yes, welcome back everyone for the concluding session. Please, like we said,
one thing, I think it's currently sharing the wrong thing to the Zoom. Could you reshare to the Zoom the thing that you're seeing on the screen, the presentation mode?
That's the one now?
That's correct. That's correct. Well done. Yeah, that's right. Okay. All good now.
So please, if you're not happy for your photos to be taken or to be part of the pictures and videos, please do let me know so that we can find a way to go around that, please. Yeah, even yes, yes. So yes, if you're not happy to be part of the pictures, please do let us know. We don't want to violate anyone's right to being part of the pictures or not. Thank you very much.
We don't want you to be sued, so okay. So thank you and welcome back from our break. So I just have just a few slides before we break out into groups. I just want to talk a bit about the budget. Budget or costing your research proposal. I know we are coming from different institutions, which means the costing mechanisms for different institutions are different. But generally speaking, for those either in the UK or Ireland or mainly Europe, they use what they call full economic costing, which is a costing that takes into account all the costs that the institution would incur in proposal development and the delivery of that proposal. But generally, a strong budget should tell the funder and reviewers that your project is realistic, deliverable, and offers value for money So you are translating your very good research plan into a cost, right? And it's easy to see a mismatch between your proposal and your costs. And this is one of the challenges with most academics and researchers face. These things should be done concurrently. And there should be a lot of iterations between your writing the grant and costing the grant. And involving, again, the people, the accounts people in your research office to do your costing as well. Don't run a trap of doing the costing on your own, because at times, institutional guidance on costings are different as well. I have seen situations where a proposal becomes so successful and it's funded, but because it was not costed using the institutional guidelines in terms of costs, they deny those awards because their contracts people would say, well, this didn't go through the approval process of our costing. So it's important that all the costs that you put in your proposal are signed off by the institution, or they are approved by the institution. Budgets must be consistent with activities in the work plan and within the guidelines of the funder. So again, reading the guidelines, it gives you an idea of what are the eligible costs and what are the ineligible costs for that particular call. So most of the calls, in fact, any call is not the same with any other call that you have seen, even if it is the same funder. So make it a habit that even if you know that this is coming from European Union, they usually charge 25% overheads, and this is stuck in your head. No, make sure that you read the core guidelines in terms of the eligible and ineligible costs. Where you don't understand, work with the people who understand the costings. I have talked about full economic costing. So the full economic costing that is usually used in the UK and mostly European universities is they are looking at what are the direct costs for, implementing a particular research project. And what are these direct costs? These are costs that can be attributed directly to the project. For example, the personnel, yourself as the postgraduate researcher or PGRA, postdoc research assistant, or as an early career researcher. So that personnel time is costed. And any other, members of your research team, that constitute the personnel costs. Then you can also talk of your travel. If you're going to travel, be it to conferences, data collection, field work, and all that. Again, when you look at personnel and travel, there are also guidelines, institutional guidelines as well, for certain grades. In other institutions, they tell you that a PGRA should be either grade 8, spine point, whatever. Then you need to follow those guidelines. In terms of travel, most of the traveling is done maybe a third-party agent who books the traveling for you and all that. So you have to check the travel policy within the institution. And for European university, most of these use a third party. So for us, we use diversity travel, which I'm sure for those in the UK, most of them, they're aware of that. So when you're costing, make sure you match the costs on the diversity, because they're the ones who are going to book your travel, your air travel, your local travel via train and all that. So if you cost below the rates that becomes a challenge. And you end up using your own out of pocket, and which is not good. I've seen most of the people using their cards and all that, but costs appropriately, then that should be covered by the grant. Equipment, there are also guidelines for equipment from the call itself. Some of the equipment can be 100%. Some of the equipment can be part, the funder pays 50%, and the institution also pays 50%. So again, check, the guidelines around equipment. Some of the equipment is not eligible. I know we always have that obsession, I need a laptop, a new laptop, very fancy one and all that. Some, they will say 1,000, that's enough for a laptop and associated software. They printed the Mac whatever book, which is 4,000 and all that, it's not covered. So I think it's something that you need to consider on equipment. Consumables, again, it all depends in terms of, printing and all these other small consumables that you may want. Plan for your dissemination and impact. This is now an in thing in proposals. If you don't have a clear plan of your dissemination and impact, and when we say dissemination, it's not attending a conference and presenting a paper. You are speaking to the converted, right? You are speaking to your peers. But we want you to design your dissemination beyond academic. Your stakeholders that you have mentioned, I'm going to work with the government, I'm going to work with local communities and all that, that should be costed and it should be reflected in the costs, right? In terms of your publications, most of the funders, they have a cost for open access and all that. They usually fund for that, especially when you look at ECRs and other major funders. But where the funder does not come clear or is blind about their costing on publications, don't hesitate to put it as a cost, because at the end of the day, you can't foot the publication costs yourself. So if the funder makes it an eligible cost, I would suggest that you put, but mostly most of the funders like ECRs, when they award you, they give you extra funding for the costing of publications. And some, I know most of the universities in Africa or any other parts of the world, they might not have those privileges. So we encourage that those who have got that privilege here, think about your collaborators in the Global South when you are having a collaboration with them in terms of their publication costs. So I always say, when I'm developing a proposal with the other collaborators, I would say, if you thought about, your publication, if you included the costs on publication, because that's equitable research right now. So those are the things that you may want to consider. But again, it's bound by the guidelines in terms of that. How are you going to demonstrate that impact with local stakeholders and all that? What are the workshops, co-creation workshops, and all the other dissemination activities that you would do, even at grassroots level, with people, with the communities that you have been researching on? We have heard about helicopter research. I think you've heard about it, yeah? People just go there, take data, go away, and that's it. So funders are now very particular about that. They now want to see you demonstrating that the affected communities that you want to help with your research and solving their problems, they should be involved in dissemination and impact so that they can take up your research results. So that's important in terms of your costing. So I was talking about these direct costs. The full economic costing and all the softwares that are used by different universities, it can be another day of training. But what I encourage you is that when you are doing your costing, make use of your research office and your finance people to make sure that you cost appropriately these direct costs. Then we have the other side, indirect costs or overheads. So these are costs incurred by the institution that can not be attributed specifically or exclusively to the project. So here I always have a fight with academics because these can actually take a significant chunk of the money in your budget. And there is no negotiation with institutions on overheads in most cases, especially with the current financial situations with most of the higher education institutions. They also want to recoup something for every project. So these are things like office space that they provide for you, lighting, the heating, maintenance of all the buildings, laboratories and everything, library services, IT, and administrative support. So each and every institution, they set every year or annually, they set a rate for these overheads, okay? Some funders now would say, despite all your rates that you have set, we are willing to just pay 25% of those overheads. So again, with your finance, they'll work out the 25% and include in your grant. Some would say we pay 80% of your overheads, which means still 20% comes from the institution. So all these things are a challenge. Mainly where I come from, I'm Zimbabwean, and in most of the universities in Zimbabwe, we don't have these research offices. So I'm privileged. I've been there. I know what is happening, and I know the systems here as well. So it helps when we are doing grant development with other African countries because I understand the challenges which they face in terms of all this. But it's a language that they may not understand when you're talking of overheads and what is that? I just want my 5,000 for participating in this research, but it's something which is provided for by the funder, and we try by all means to do capacity building on budgeting for those things, especially in those settings. But again, make use of your finance and research offices in doing the costings. Give ample time to do the costings because of institutional sign-offs. If you are looking at a fellowship like the UKRI fellowship, which is for 5 years, that's millions, to an average of 2 million of a grant. And that has to be signed off institutionally and to check whether everything has been costed correctly. So I urge you to engage them early for them to do the costings. That usually happens when you are writing your proposal and when you are costing it. You want to overpromise, but under-delivering. You have a budget of 10,000, but you're saying we're going to reach out to 5,000 people. We are going to have, all the training sessions for 6,000 people. We are going to engage all the policymakers within 12 months with a budget of 10,000, right? Some, they even want to address all the sustainable development goals with 10,000. So that's, you want to lift the whole world with 10,000. And it's easy to pick that in a proposal. So many activities, so many things, but which are not proportional to the resources available. So don't get trapped into this Superman syndrome that, oh, I can do everything. Review, prioritize feasibility over ambition, okay? Here I always struggle with academics and say, why can't you, tone down in terms of these promises? Because I think the resources available, it's just a 60,000. Why do you want to put all this, and within 12 months you will have delivered this? It becomes a challenge. So a tightly scoped, highly realistic project designed to achieve one solid outcome will always defeat an overly ambitious project guaranteed to face delays. Okay? So I think that's something to avoid on. So before we get into the breakout session, I just want us to understand these terms, theory of change, and why it is important. Some, they confuse theory of change and logic models. And so I just want to explain those and why it is important to have a theory of change. I know João has already mentioned some snippets around this, but I just want to make sure we are on the same page with theory of change and why it is important. So a theory of change, that's a step-by-step roadmap that shows how and why your research will lead to a specific real-world result. So it's more like a cause and effect chain, right? If we do this, this is what is going to happen. But you are putting a narrative to all those processes. That's a theory of change. So in other words, you're working backwards from the ultimate goal to plan all the actions that will lead to that ultimate goal. So theory of change, it unpacks the multiple steps involved in all that change process. And a logic model now, it's just a mapping of what the project will do. So it's mainly the connections of your inputs up to your impact. So it's just a graphical presentation of that. But a theory of change is giving a narrative behind those connections. And once you get that narrative right, for me, I always say, when I'm dealing with academics, let's start with just a theory of change, just one page. What is your problem, right? And clearly describe this problem. So I will show you in terms of the exercise, in examples of how you can do that, and then try to now map what needs to be done, what are the activities, what are the outputs, and what do you think will be the outcome, and explaining that narrative. So that's the exercise we want to do now. When you look at that call, in your groups, we are going to divide ourselves into groups of 5 each. Then you are going to scope your problem based on all the information that has been provided on the call. What is the problem that you want to address? What are the, for today, I just want you to concentrate on what do you need to do in terms of your research and what are the immediate outcomes that comes out of that, all right? And then the other bits, I think we may not have time to go through each and everything. But for all the materials that I'm going to share with you later, you have all the bits on that. So in your groups of 5, I just want you to come up in 13 minutes, or let's just be generous, 15 minutes, come up with a blueprint. What is the micro problem? Remember, João has talked about the micro. Don't focus on the bigger issues, because remember, the budget that we have and everything cannot uplift that whole, So let's focus on the micro project problem statement. Just write a simple one-sentence statement defining the specific or solvable gap within the thematic area of that call that we shared with you, right? Then step number 2, I just want to look at what are the research activities that you want to do. More like a condensed methodology of what you want to do, and then what is the outcome of doing all that, and what is the impact that comes, what is the envisaged impact of all the work that you would have done. All right, is that clear? Is that clear? Yeah?
I guess I'm just... exercise and then the team is what from it.
No, as a team. We want you to work as a team. So I'm gonna stop sharing on this and then go on to this. So that's the instruction. So first, you just indicate your team members in your group, just write in the, I think the Google document that was shared with you, you can actually edit it. So group 1 can just edit that and put all the team members in that. Then, in terms of your micro problem, we have sort of tried to break it down for you. So this is just an example, but you can use your own words. So what we are looking at is, despite what's the whatever broader context of everything and whatever, within your target population, what is the problem that they are facing? And what is it resulting to? What are the consequences of that issue? Or that, if it's not addressed, what will happen? And because of this, whatever, this is what we are going to do in terms of that. So from that template, just formulate your problem statement with those guidelines. And then step 2, we are just looking at all your research activities, put them in that first step. What are you going to do in your research? More of your condensed methodology. Immediate outcome. What do you think is the immediate outcome of all the work that you are going to do? And then, what is the development impact of doing all that? When you look in relation to the funder. If we had time, I would have requested you to just do the narrative of each and every activity, of all your activities, giving some kind of flesh into those activities, and then again giving a narration of your immediate outcomes and what will be the development of human security impact based on this call. Here we are trying to test how these things are all connected. And if you are good into just being able to pitch this before you write any proposal, to be clear in your mind that this is the problem I'm going to address, these are the activities that I'm going to do, this is how they are connected throughout up to impact, then that should be a good sign in terms of proposal development before writing anything in your any call for proposal. Just start with that process. One pager. What is the problem? What am I going to do with this problem? What are the activities that I'm going to do? What are the outcomes and impact? Then that bit of narrative as well. So if you can do that in your groups for the next 15 minutes,